Arlene is a troubled woman who is experiencing marital issues at the moment. She has made up a habit of arriving home late and drunk. Despite having a lovely young boy, Arlene is also having an affair with a man who is her colleague at the office. One night, Arlene returns home drunk, and her husband, Henry, has had enough of her poor behavior. He makes her sleep on the couch for the night, and the next morning, Arlene is apologetic about her current behavior and is hopeful that she can make it up to Henry. While she is at work, the man who is having an affair with her, Steve, invites her and the rest of his friends for a couple of drinks. Although she is a bit hesitant, Arlene goes along anyway, as she has been drinking for quite some time now. Arlene leaves to pick up her son, William, but not before giving a romantic kiss to Steve. Arlene picks up William, whose teacher complains that Arlene has been consistent in picking up her son late from school. Arlene doesn't bother about it, but that soon costs her everything. As Arlene is driving, her attention is diverted to a text message she receives on her phone, and that becomes a grave error for her and her son as another car comes crashing into theirs. As if getting into a deadly accident isn't enough, Arlene learns that her lovely son passed away in the accident. Arlene is traumatized by all this, and Henry now has no option but to leave Arlene forever. Both of them divorce soon after. Arlene moves into a new apartment, but she still can't get over William's passing. Her father comforts her during this painful time, but he can't do anything about it. Arlene visits William's grave regularly, where she always breaks down crying. Having not seen Arlene for some time, Steve decides to meet Arlene at her new apartment. Steve is saddened to witness Arlene's deteriorating state. Arlene asks Steve to leave her, but when Steve hesitates for a minute, Arlene almost hurts him with a sharp knife. The minute Steve leaves her apartment, Arlene continues to. After some time, Arlene is visited by an anonymous man at a coffee shop, claiming he can help her. Arlene, who wonders how anyone could help her during this predicament, leaves abruptly. Arlene has a hard time falling asleep for days, and she decides to end everything for good. Arlene buys an inexpensive car and drives speedily, in hopes of getting into another deadly car crash. Things don't go her way when the car breaks down in the middle of the road. Arlene looks inside the hood of the car and finds that something is stuck in it. Arlene uses a lot of force to pull that thing out from the hood in order to get the car working. Sometime later, Arlene comes across a young boy like William at a park. Remembering how she wasn't there for her own child, Arlene decides to play with the boy by swinging his swing set. The mother of the boy arrives soon enough and pushes away Arlene. Knowing she doesn't have any other choice to handle the situation she has fallen into, Arlene decides to go to the institute, from where the anonymous man came to offer her help. While Arlene waits to meet the official of the institute, she sits down in the waiting area. She interacts with another man there, who starts to display weird mannerisms. Arlene meets the official, Reed, who lets her know the entire terms and conditions. But Arlene still doesn't know what the procedure is all about. After being tied to a wheelchair, Reed places a medication in Arlene's mouth, which causes her to bleed badly. Arlene soon passes away, but little did she know she wasn't gone for good. The main job of the institute is to send the ones they contact back to the past, by terminating their current life. Arlene might have passed away in the present, but her consciousness has been miraculously sent back 2 weeks into the past. Arlene wakes up to meet William and Henry on the same day of the accident. Her whole world has been turned upside down, as she is given another chance in life. She promises Henry that she will be changing herself for good this time, and would be there for him and William. Arlene goes to the office and avoids Steve the entire time. After work, Arlene heads back to the institute to pay them for the procedure. Arlene picks up William from school, this time right on time. She is extra cautious with his seatbelt, wanting to avoid the collision at all costs this time. Arlene is anxious during the ride back home, but she and William return home safe and sound. Arlene can now relax, knowing everything's not only normal, but perfect. But just when she thought that nothing bad could happen, Arlene begins to experience premonitions of the events that happened in the future. The premonition causes Arlene to lose all sense of where she is at the moment, and act the exact same way she did in those events. The first premonition was about getting into the accident, and she gets another premonition later in the night, regarding the news of William's fate. Arlene hopes to begin the next morning fresh, but it is all ruined when she receives the third premonition, of when she received a divorce in court. Arlene follows Reed around the city, and gets to meet him. As Arlene was sent back 2 weeks in time, Reed doesn't know who she is. After introducing herself and what she has been experiencing, Reed concludes that Arlene's consciousness is having trouble distinguishing her current present from her past horrible memories. Reed lets her know that she would have to wait it out for the premonitions to stop, as those haunting memories only exist in her head. Knowing how Arlene could still bother him, he makes it clear that the institute can take back what it has given to its clients, and warns Arlene against following him again. Arlene resorts to drinking once again, and she receives yet another premonition, of when she began crying when she was moving into her new apartment. When Arlene is alone that night, preparing dinner, Steve arrives to meet her, as she hasn't come to work for days. Arlene tells Steve that she has decided to resign from work, and wants to focus on her family. As Steve gets closer to her, Arlene begins to have a premonition about the time when Steve almost got hurt by her with a sharp knife. As the premonitions cause her to act in the same manner, Arlene, who is holding a knife, fatally stabs Steve. When she comes back to her senses, Arlene realizes what she has just done. Arlene is aware that she can't call the police, so she takes matters into her own hands and ties up Steve. She takes a rolling pin and uses it to break Steve's phone, so that no one could ever use it if it was to be found. Arlene buries Steve in the backyard and begins to wonder if she made a terrible mistake by coming back to the past. Arlene returns home and remains frustrated for the entire day. She behaves extremely nervous around her husband and son, who also notice her weird behavior. Ever since Arlene had the procedure, she hasn't been able to fall asleep. As the inability of falling asleep isn't helping her in any way, Arlene decides to go to meet her father and let him know about everything. She wakes up her father in the middle of the night, worrying him as to why Arlene has arrived at this time of night. After telling him every single thing about William's fate and how she took a procedure that wiped out the past 2 weeks of her life, Arlene's father believes that his daughter is nothing more than drunk at this point. Arlene can't believe how her father doesn't trust her. Things get more out of hand as Arlene experiences another premonition of when her car broke down and she pulled something out of the car's hood. Arlene, who is out of her senses, reenacts that and strangles her own father. When she returns to being normal, Arlene realizes that she has ended her own father's life. The next day, Arlene decides to get in contact with Reed in hopes of fixing all of this mess once and for all. Reed is heading to his office, and Arlene arrives in front of him. Reed is furious that Arlene decided to find him again, as he clearly told her not to. Arlene wants Reed to send her back in time again, so that she can fix all of this mess once and for all. Reed can't do that, as he flat out says that Arlene is the one who has made it even worse for herself. This conversation proves deadly for Reed, as Arlene begins to suffer another premonition from where she was playing with the little boy on the swing set. Arlene begins to move her hand as if she is pushing the swing set, and it results in pushing Reed off the stairs. Arlene finds Reed's institute card on the floor and uses it to go back to the institute. Arlene wastes no time in going to the procedure room and taking the deadly medication once again. Arlene suffers from internal bleeding yet again and passes away. Arlene wakes up in the past once again, and having learned from the aftermath of the procedure, Arlene becomes more cautious. She leaves her home and books 3 hotel rooms so that she doesn't hurt anyone during her upcoming premonitions. Knowing what the first premonition is going to be, Arlene decides to park her car in the parking lot and goes through the premonition of the car crash there. Arlene calls up her father and confesses that she has been cheating on Henry and hasn't been a good mother lately. Her father is disappointed, but is aware that Arlene will make her life better from now on. Arlene prepares herself for the second premonition, in which she stabs Steve. To make her plans go awry, Steve shows up in her hotel room. Not wanting the past to repeat itself, Arlene asks Steve to leave immediately. Just when Steve gets closer to Arlene, the premonition causes Arlene to stab, but luckily for Steve this time, he wasn't too close, and Arlene stabs a lamp nearby instead. Steve believes that Arlene needs help and wants to tell everything to her husband. Arlene asks him not to disclose anything to her husband, as he is blameless in this, and they can talk it through. The next morning at breakfast, Arlene lets Steve know that she has made her life a mess, and she should have been present for William and Henry instead of getting drunk late at night. Steve professes his love for Arlene, who in turn admits that she has feelings for him too. Arlene makes it clear that she wants to make her life better now. Another premonition hits Arlene, in which she broke Steve's phone with a rolling pin. This time, Arlene uses a fork to hit Steve's hand, injuring it in the process. Steve says that Arlene has gone berserk, and she desperately needs help. Arlene goes to the beach and stays the night there so that she can't hurt anyone else. A dog comes near Arlene at the wrong time, as Arlene suffers from another premonition. She strangles the dog, like she did to her father in the past. Even though she is devastated by this, Arlene is relieved, knowing that she has gone through all of the horrible premonitions. She returns home and makes it clear to William that she is never going to leave him and will be the mother she needed to be in the first place. Thinking she might not suffer from anything horrific again, Arlene forgot that she had one last premonition left, in which she pushed down Reed. Arlene, not being in her senses, pushing William off the sidewalk into a speeding car. Having come back to this fatal event once again, Arlene regretfully says that she needs to go back to the institute one more time.